With no further ado, I mentioned that there'll be a 3-in-1. So I'm going to turn you all over to Jackie, Jean, and Erin, who are going to talk about Swift Vengeance a little bit. And then one of them, I believe Erin, is going to take you on a brief tour, a brief teaser of the book itself. For the rest of us, we will mute ourselves and hide ourselves on the screen, so you only have these three lovely ladies to watch. Go right ahead.
All right, Jean, Jean or Jackie, do you want to kind of give a brief synopsis? I mean, Jackie, you do it.
Things we should have worked out before we came on here.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We're professional.
Fine.
We're professional. It's fine.
So Swift Vengeance takes characters from a character from each of our previous novels. We have Brittany from Land's End for me, Tony from Breaking Down Our Walls from Erin, and Alice and Leslie from the second wave for Jean. Sorry, I blanked for a minute. And what the essence of this novel is there is Brittany has suffered a traumatic brain injury back home in San Francisco, and it's given her the ability to see through somebody else's eyes. She doesn't realize it right away, but that's what it is. And unfortunately, this person is a psychopathic serial killer. Which leads her to Swift Island, which is based on, we get a lot of questions about this, so it's based on Provincetown. And that's where she meets Tony and Leslie and Alice. Tony happens to be Leslie and Alice's niece, who is running away from heartbreak and is seeking refuge with her two aunts. And the hunting down of the serial killer and kind of the discovering of who that person is. And of course, falling in love. And then you get to kind of see the epilogue of Leslie and Alice and kind of where their lives have taken them after they've finally found their way back to each other after the second wave.
Perfect.
Look at that, lovely. On the fly, you know?
Lovely, thank you. I thought I was the improv person. That was beautiful, well done. All right, so I'm going to read a section of the book, and it starts when Brittany and Tony have gone back to the house and are drinking some wine on the porch, and Leslie and Alice come home to find them sort of, staring longingly into each other's eyes. So, and then there's another scene after that I'm going to read. Leslie made her way from the golf cart to the porch and found a seat on the arm of Tony's chair. She moved her cane out of the way, tucking it behind the chair and sighed. Have you two been out here all this time? She looked between Tony and Brittany, the familiar scene of new beginnings plastered all over their faces. 2 bottles of wine, too? Brittany, I don't think you'll be going anywhere tonight. Oh, no, I'll be fine, Leslie. Thank you for your concern, though. I can always catch a lift. Alice chuckled from her spot on the steps to the porch, her head leaning back against the railing. Honey, lifts and Ubers are as sparse here as straight people. You'll be better off if we just drive you home on the golf cart. Absolutely not, Leslie said with a firm tone. Your eyesight is atrocious this late at night. Brittany, you can have the pullout, period. She noticed Brittany's eyes move from hers to Tony's, then back to hers. End of story. Okay. Brittany said with a laugh. If you're complying only to get 2 old women off your back, I'd say you're learning really fast. Tony softly elbowed her aunt, then leaned against her leg. Also, Auntie, I wouldn't say no to you playing with my hair. Leslie shook her head as she caught Alice's gaze and held it for a few beats before she placed her hand on Tony's head. You used to beg me to do this when you were a kid. She smiled, recalling the memory of a young Tony skipping around the house, asking for snack-sized 3 Musketeers and giggling as she peeled the chocolate off and ate the nougat by itself. You were quite the handful back then. Tony was telling me she's always been a bit of a wild child, Brittany said, then took a drink from her wine, licked her lips, and smiled at Tony. I'm sure there are plenty of stories about those intriguing times. Oh, I have loads of stories. Leslie could feel the emotion as it formed in her throat for no apparent reason. She sniffled, which Alice, of course, seemed to hear. You okay, my love? Alice reached her hand out and placed it on Leslie's calf. You need to get to bed? Leslie scoffed. You're always trying to get me into bed, huh? She followed with a playful wink. Tony chuckled. I really do hope I have a relationship just like your guys' one day. I agree, Brittany said. Leslie once again noticed the way Brittany's eyes lingered for a couple of seconds longer on Tony. Tony, why don't you show Brittany her accommodations for the night? Alice and I will be in shortly. Listen, you two, I can make it home just fine. You can stop pushing the issue and just go inside, please. I will not be responsible for you wrecking that damn moped. Leslie saw the way Brittany's demeanor changed momentarily before she nodded, a small smile coming to her lips. Thank you. She watched as Brittany followed Tony inside, then turned to Alice. I'm a genius, I tell you. Well, you are definitely upping your game in the matchmaking department. Alice ran her hand over Leslie's calf again. I do love living our life together, just the two of us on our little island. But I have to say, it's been a real breath of fresh air to have Tony here. She seems lighter, doesn't she? Think it has anything to do with the handy woman I snatched up? Oh, I think it has everything to do with that, Leslie said. You don't think we're pushing Tony towards something she may not be ready for? Leslie paused to consider the suggestion. I suppose that's possible, but the chemistry between them is undeniable, whether it's exactly the right time or not. You remember how that goes, don't you, my love? Oh, I remember it all too well. Alice's demeanor grew somber. Falling in love with you was the most exciting thing I'd ever experienced, and the most excruciating when you said you couldn't leave Bill for me. I'd never wish that on anyone, especially Tony. I didn't mean to minimize the seriousness of our situation, darling. I was there too. I had to live with the consequences of my actions for decades. But times are so different now. Women are so different now. Tony says she's not ready, but she certainly seems to enjoy the time she spent with Brittany. Alice stared at her with a mixture of caution and adoration. I will once again follow the love of my life into the great unknown. She leaned over for a kiss, then got up slowly. You better be right this time, or I'm renting a room at Marjorie's B&B if the shit hits the fan between them. Oh, I love you, Alice Burton. She accepted Alice's hand to get up. You better love me, Leslie Burton, because you're never getting rid of me. Now we're going to go inside with Brittany and Tony. Brittany switched off the light to the small bathroom that was off the living room. It was dark, save for a small salt lamp that resided on the bookshelf next to an old tube television. She crept over to the bookshelf, secretly dying to know what kind of literature existed in an older lesbian couple's home. The salt lamp shed just enough light to see the familiar titles of The Handmaid's Tale, A Room of One's Own, We Should All Be Feminists. But there were other books too, ones Brittany knew of because they were the same ones she would sink into a comfy chair with, excited about the idea of escaping into a romance that spoke to her. Knowing these women, including Tony, were actually people with similar interests and desires, made Brittany feel better about her impromptu and erratic decision to hightail it to this island. You know, you can turn on the light, came a soft voice from behind her. Brittany spun around, surprised to see Tony standing there, all smooth, toned arms and legs, and a white tank top and white boy shorts. Actually, surprised wasn't the right word. Brittany was completely taken aback, thrown off, and 100% turned on by the sight standing before her. Up until then, the only way she'd seen Tony was completely put together and flawless. But now, even in the ambiance of the salt lamp, in nothing but her underclothes, Tony looked like a vision, an answer to a prayer Brittany didn't even know was on her mind, let alone in her mouth. She wasn't even sure if a God existed in this weird world. That moment solidified things, though. There may not be a God, but there was most certainly a higher power responsible for Tony in that outfit. I wanted to check on you. Tony's lips turned up into a small smile as she stood there, her arms at her side, her nipples erect. What the fuck is she trying to do to me? Oh, I'm good. I'm totally fine. I'm great. No, Tony's laugh was tiny and quiet. I know you're good, but are you okay with staying here? I don't want you sneaking out in the middle of the night. Who knows what kind of crazies are lurking around out there. Brittany's skin prickled at the mention of crazies lurking in the streets. Tony had no idea how right she was, but this wasn't the time. It wasn't just because Brittany had no idea how Tony would react, but because she didn't want to ruin their night. A million thoughts of what she actually wanted to do with Tony bombarded her. They ranged from teeth on bare skin to nails down her back. Not a single one of them included Brittany's visions or the conversation it would require. I guess you're right. Brittany took a step closer to the pullout. She glanced down at the light blue comforter, the matching colored pillows, the way Tony had folded the corner of the bed down for her. I should probably get some... Her sentence stopped. not of her own doing, but as if it had a mind of its own. Sleep? Yeah. Well, if you need me, Tony started, I'm upstairs on the left. Well, that was a loaded statement. Yes, I fucking need you. The desire coursing through Brittany's veins had been magnified by 2 bottles of a tasty Sauvignon Blanc and an even tastier white tank top and boy shorts. She finally made herself nod, because if she stood there any longer, she'd be the crazy creep running around Swift Island. After Tony left, Brittany watched her succulent tan legs disappearing up the stairs as she took them 2 at a time. Brittany sank into the mattress. She sighed. Maybe this was what she needed. And then the feeling of comfort was quickly replaced by the all too familiar shooting pain in her head. She rolled onto her side, covered her head with one of the pillows, groaned into the soft material, and rode out the next flashes. The pebble road, the Adirondack chairs, the chimenea, the easy conversation, as if she wasn't really a part of any of it, as if she was watching it. And as quickly as it started, the vision stalled and the searing pain faded into the darkness. What did these flashes mean? How were they important? What was someone or something trying to tell her? Was it the higher power she didn't believe in, or was it something else altogether? She needed to find out, because collapsing into a pile of pain every time things in her life were going well was going to get real irritating, as well as really fucking awkward. Go get Swift Engines.
That was awesome. And I have to say, I just loved the moment of the book snooping. I'm sure we're all guilty of that. The second
right?
It's like, ooh.
Absolutely.
I have to ask before we move on to the next reader, what's it like writing in a trio?
I thought it was fun.
I thought it was fun. Yeah.
I thought it was fun too.
It's fun writing in this trio. I don't know about other ones. Yeah.
That's totally fair.
We get along really well, all 3 of us. Like, we became very fast friends, and it just, writing together felt like we had been in each other's lives for forever. Like, I can't remember a time that these 2 weren't in my life.
Yes, it's not like group. I know, Erin, you're so corny.
Feelings.
It's not like group work in college. We were not forced together, and we actually enjoyed the whole entire crazy, complicated, wonderful experience.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you very much. We will ask MJ to come back now, and we will move on to MJ. I'll get you to introduce your book, and then tell us what we're in for, and then take it away.
I'm trying to come up.
You're there. You're good.
Am I good?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I can't see what I'm doing. So I'm going to read from Desires After Dark, which is a vampire erotic novel. It starts out in Buenos Aires, ends up in New Orleans, and covers a little bit of ground in between. The part I'm going to read to you, it's written in first-person POV with Alex the vampire as the narrator. And I'm going to read to a part after she has just met a woman in Buenos Aires, and they've decided to go home. So anyway, she called her driver, and the car has just pulled up, and we'll take it from there. The car pulled right up to us, and I held Martha's door as she slid in. I went around and climbed in, then asked my driver to take the long way back to the house. The long way, Martha said. Why? I want to show you more of Buenos Aires. Remember, I love my city, and I love to show it off. Relax and enjoy the champagne and the view. We sipped the champagne, and I looked out the window with Martha, trying to imagine seeing the now familiar sights for the first time. Martha did not disappoint me with her reaction. It was obvious she was in awe. A half hour later, my driver pulled up to the front door. I thanked her, then hurried around to open Martha's door. You're so chivalrous, she said. I like to think I know how to treat a lady. That you do. I smiled broadly. If I had my way, I would indeed show her how a lady should be treated, in several meanings of the word. Once inside, I treated Martha to a tour of the house. She was duly impressed. The tour ended in the kitchen, where I opened a bottle of champagne and filled 2 flutes. Where to now? Said Martha. Let's go up to the terrace. I love my rooftop oasis. We took the stairs up and she gasped when she saw the luscious greenery that adorned the space. "This is gorgeous," she said. "You should see it in the daylight when everything is in bloom." Of course, I had never seen anything in bloom, but I wasn't about to tell her that. "Oh, wow, I bet it's breathtaking." "That it is. Now come, sit with me." I led her to a white wrought iron table and chairs that overlooked the city. I moved my chair so I could sit next to her. I draped an arm across her shoulders and she snuggled against me. I discreetly checked my watch. I had about 4 hours until the sun came up. I'd have to try to move things along. "Well," said Martha, "this night certainly has turned out differently than I expected." "Ah, yes, I know what you mean. How lucky for us that thug stole your purse, huh?" She laughed. It was a wonderful sound that was music to my ears. "How lucky was I that you were able to be there and come to my rescue. I'm glad I was able to help." It occurred to me that it would be odd for a woman to travel alone. Did she have a husband, wife, partner waiting for her? "Who are you traveling with?" I asked nervously. "Oh, a group of us teachers are traveling together." I breathed a sigh of relief. "Should you check in with someone?" She laughed again. I felt my stomach flip. Other parts of me, now filled with blood from a decent meal, came to life as well. "Oh no, today was our do your own thing day. Tomorrow we have more tours." "I see. And what time do those tours start?" 8, she rolled her eyes. "Should I get you back to your hotel then?" "Alex, are you trying to get rid of me?" "Au contraire, I don't want you going anywhere." "Do you mean that?" said Martha. "I do." "May I ask a favor?" "Anything." "Will you kiss me, Alex?" "Please, I'm not usually this forward, but I'm dying to feel your lips on mine. We'll just say it's the champagne talking." "No, we'll say it's Martha talking, and I'd love nothing more than to kiss you." I looked into her pools of chocolate eyes and saw a longing there that I hadn't seen in far too long. I needed her, and it seemed she needed me every bit as much. Her full lips parted, and I lowered my mouth to hers. The first kiss was brief, hesitant, questioning. As I straightened, she looped her arms around my neck and pulled me back. I kissed her again, harder, and my breath caught it when she opened her mouth. With a mind of its own, my tongue sought hers. I stroked over, under, all around her tongue, and elicited wonderful moans of enjoyment. I'm not sure how long the kiss lasted, but it seemed an eternity, and I was dizzy with need when it ended. "May I show you my bedroom?" I whispered hoarsely. "Dear God, please." And I'm going to leave it there.
I love that. And I love the question about, so what time do you have to get going in the morning? It's such a lovely, gentle nudge. Again, reminding everybody, if anybody has any questions for any of our authors, pop them into the Q&A, because we will have time for sure at the end to chat with everybody. And the link for Desires After Dark is up in the chat roll as well. So please check that out. Thank you, MJ. Next, we have Rene Rahman. Is that right? Rene Rahman or Rene Roman? I'm so sorry.
Roman. It doesn't matter, though. I'll answer to anything. You know that.
All right. So Renee, you can take us away at your leisure. Just let us know what we're in for and then blow us away.
Thank you. So today I'll be reading from my August release, Hot Days, Heated Nights. This was a little bit different than what I've written before. And I like to consider it a steamy romance rather than just a contemporary romance. Cole Jackson inherited her father's vehicle repair shop and gas station in Inlet, New York. She hasn't ever allowed herself more than a temporary reprieve from the day-to-day with another woman. Lee Walker, a construction worker who's lost her job and recently forced to move in with her uncle, has her vehicle breaks down a short time later and ends up at Cole's garage. After they discuss the repair, Cole senses Lee is disheartened by the cost and offers to take her for a beer and food. Lee wasn't sure what she was doing. Today had been another lightning strike to her armor. The shell she'd built against being disappointed or hurt or pissed as fuck normally withstood the occasional battering. But today had been close to her breaking point. She hadn't allowed herself to cry in ages, so she wasn't sure why she was on the brink of letting her guard down enough to open the floodgates. Maybe it was Cole's open, friendly nature. Strangely, she felt safe around her. Sliding into the booth, she admired Cole as she laughed with the bartender. Moderate shoulders and a narrow waist gently flared into slightly wider hips that looked perfect for holding on to. She was a couple inches shorter than Lee, though the rest of the details were hidden beneath the uniform she wore. When Cole turned, she quickly glanced away. Here you go. Cole set 2 Pilsner glasses down. Milk stout, she said, pointing to the dark ale, and Belgian wheat. After producing a couple of coasters, she tossed them onto the table and sat across from her. I should have asked you what you wanted. Cole's gaze held hers for a beat before Lee turned her attention back to the beer. What's your favorite? She asked. Cole continued to study her, and Lee wondered what she saw. Both. Cole shared a lopsided grin. That's why I ordered them. No matter what you choose, I'll be good. When was the last time she'd been given a choice about anything? Lee picked up the glass of wheat beer and took a long swallow. It was ice cold and soothed her dry throat. Perfect. That's why I come here. Ice cold beer, air conditioning, decent food. Cole reached for the menus and handed one over. What are you in the mood for? I have no idea. She didn't. Not about food or her future or whatever else Cole might be offering. Or maybe that was all conjecture and imagination on her part. You may not like what I like. Again, she felt as though the topic wasn't about food at all. Try me. Cole gazed from her eyes to her lips to her throat and downward where her breasts pressed against the fabric of her tank top. Her nipples tightened. Without a word, Cole went to the bar. The waitress scribbled and smiled and disappeared into the back. Do you mind me asking a personal question? Cole settled against the booth again. Go ahead. She sipped more beer, the sharp fermentation waking her taste buds. Do you know how long you're staying in Inlet? Lee set the glass down when her hand began to shake. She might have turned to sex to get over tough times before, and Cole was easy on the eyes, but Lee wasn't sure what Cole wanted from her. The initial impression of Cole batting for the same team seemed to be more likely by the minute, but she hesitated because she didn't want to be hit on just because local options were scarce. I'm not sure. Why? You're shaking. What's wrong? Lee shrugged, unwilling to admit her desire and the sudden need to flee the potential complication if it all ended not well. I'm okay, tired, I guess. Apparently satisfied, Cole went on. There's some interesting sights around, historical and otherwise. I could show you if you wanted. Lee was trying to make sense of the energy of Cole's nearness, the offer of friendship, and the possible innuendo of more. Why? Small town hospitality to someone new in the area? Cole's mouth twitched. You're under no obligation to accept my offer of friendship. She didn't have many friends. There were people she had a beer with, women she slept with. None were the kind of people she'd hang out with, randomly text or call on a whim. I don't know how long I'll be here. She didn't miss the flicker of disappointment. Sounds like fun, though. Cole would be temporary, too. She was okay with that. Cole's easy smile returned. Okay, you let me know what works for you and I'll play tour guide. Lee snorted. Depends on what you want to do. The waitress came over and set a number of plates on the table, along with silverware and a wad of napkins. Another beer? Why not, she said. Being in Cole's company was a pleasant change. Cole nodded to the waitress, then gestured to the food. When left to make choices, I tend to go overboard. Help yourself. She looked at the assortment in front of her. How'd I do? Cole snagged an onion ring. Her clit twitched hard. Christ. Great, she said, but the word came out hoarse and rough. My favorites. Cole nodded, picked up a wedge of sandwich and slowly took a bite. She thought of those lips on hers before chastising herself for letting her mind wander. An offer of friendship was a far stretch from offering sex. Order something else if you like. Cole sipped her beer, took another bite. What's here is good. Cole appeared unsure of questioning her. So, Lee sighed. The company I worked for went belly up and took most of what I had with it. Even feeling like an utter failure, sharing how she had landed at her uncle's place was cathartic. She didn't share things about herself with anyone. That's rough. If I can help with anything, just ask. Cole's eyes relayed genuine care, and she could use a bit of understanding right now. Thanks. She reached for the ketchup at the same time Cole reached for a fry, and their hands brushed. Lee saw Cole's pupils dilate along with a flare of desire, so naked Lee's entire body felt the impact. Is that why you asked me to wait on fixing your truck? Cole drank deeply, and her gaze cooled, allowing Lee to resettle her thoughts. Partly. I've filed for unemployment and I'm waiting to hear back before I commit to an expense I may not be able to afford. Cole was quiet for a minute. Where were you living before? Atlantic City. Cole whistled. Big change coming here. That's for sure. What about you? You're a native of this thriving community, right? Born and bred, Cole said, though I'll likely be the last of my family. Never had the urge to have children of your own? Cole chuckled and shook her head. It's not that. I like women, which makes it logistically a little more difficult. I'm too old now anyway. Even with her assumption confirmed, Lee ignored the lingering urge for sex. The day I discovered that I liked girls, pain shot through her gut, and she was glad she was sitting. She thought she'd gotten over her abandonment issues long ago. Cole must have sensed her pulling back, holding on to her secrets. What about you? Kids in your future? Cole asked. She laughed sarcastically. Even to her, it sounded odd. I'm not even relationship material. Cole studied her for a long time before going on. How's the heat here compared to the city? Lee welcomed the change in topic. She was so tired of trying to figure out what tomorrow would bring, all the while knowing most of it was up to fate. She slipped into her old habit of picturing the woman she was talking with naked while staying away from the deeper subjects.
That was lovely. And yes, steamy. Well done.
Thank you.
I love the idea of sort of relinquishing control, of letting someone else order for you. It's always such a lovely, understated little way to sneak into that sort of intimacy. It was really nice.
Thank you.
Next, we have CF Frizzell, who will join us in a second, I believe. And if you would like to tell us, CF, about your book, and then by all means, jump right into your reading.
Hi, Nathan. It's good to see everybody. Today I'll be reading from Measure Devotion. It's my latest, came out in June. Just give you a little intro to this, where we are. Measure Devotion is a love story set in the Civil War. And both main characters dream of finding that special someone, that special woman someday. Forced to disguise herself as her late twin brother, Cooper, Catherine Sampson of Massachusetts has been fighting for the Union for more than a year now. A deepening friendship begins when she meets Sophie Bauer, who's an Army hospital volunteer. She lives with her father and her two very young siblings in Gettysburg. Sophie wrestles with her attraction to this man, this soldier Cooper. And the encouragement from her family only adds to her confusion. And in this scene that I'm going to read, the war closes in on Sophie's farm. Resetting the rocks in the wall proved difficult once Sophie stuffed everything inside. She labored to account for everyone's needs: the spare clothing, blankets, jugs of water, a short barrel of smoked meats, and every canned and jarred product they could spare. She even secreted away 4 sweet sticks. With the space secure and looking undisturbed, she assessed the cellar and hoped these stores wouldn't be touched. Maybe rebels would just take what they found in the smokehouse and go. She chortled at herself. This underground pantry, like every farmer's, would be a target. If or when the rebels came, they would take everything. She walked to the safe space and patted the rocks, grateful. Sophie passed the evening on the porch with family again, although tonight's anxiety prompted little conversation at first. Even supper had been subdued. She'd managed to create a tasty supper of very young vegetables and remnants of last night's pork, along with little Greta's outstanding bread, even though both the main and summer kitchens had been reduced to bare bones. Despite the pleasant meal, the household mood remained somber. I wish we knew if Mr. Robinson made it home, Greta said. We just have to wait and see, child. But Papa, for how long? What if, Greta, we have no way of knowing? Well, Carl said, and he swung a leg over the railing, just wait till our army marches right into town and captures all them rebs. That's what I'm wishing. Well, me too, Greta said. Me three, Sophie added. Papa began the methodical process of packing his pipe for a smoke. In his last letter, where did Coop say he was? North of Aldi, Sophie answered, but that was almost a week ago. Papa put his tobacco pouch away and chose a stick match. What are you thinking, Papa? Carl asked, searching Papa's face. You look to be calculating. Papa's lips curled around his pipe. You're right, my boy. Our United States Army can march a good 25, maybe 30 miles in a day. At least that's what it claims. So it could be closing in on Frederick City or thereabouts, just a guess. So could they come tomorrow? I doubt it, unless they're closer right now than we think. He drew on the flame and puffed out some smoke. Couple days, maybe. Those rebels better leave soon, Greta said. If they know what's good for them, they will, Carl said. Yankees will give them what for. He glanced at Sophie. I bet Cooper will take out more than his share. Sophie grinned. He'll do his duty. Yes, I'm sure he'll try. I wonder if we'll have a chance to meet him, Greta said. Sophie thought it was the first time Greta had smiled all day. He will come to see us, won't he? I'm fairly sure, yes, but who knows what will happen when our army gets here or how long it'll stay. I'm sure he'll visit us if he can. So what's it like in Massachusetts, has he told you? And as usual, Carl showed interest in Coop as well. He brought his leg back over the rail to lean on his knees. Does he have a boat? Thankfully, their minds were off the Confederacy, at least for a moment. That I don't know for sure. I don't recall him ever saying so. He's a farmer. Well, how come he's not married? Carl persisted. Did his wife die? No, he's just hasn't cared to marry. Not yet, Papa chipped in. Probably looking for just the right gal. He puffed again and winked at Greta, who immediately turned to Sophie. Stop. Sophie raised a palm to silence whatever was about to spring out from Greta's conniving mind. Stop that thinking. I've told you all, Coop and I are just good friends. That's all. So, well, I think Coop sounds funny, Carl said. It reminds me of chickens. Greta smirked at Sophie. And you think he's handsome. You told me so when you came home in January. Well, he is. He's tall and has dark hair and very brown eyes. And how long is he in for? Has he said? Now, Papa joined in the interrogation. Is he a one-year man? 3, Sophie answered. 3? Papa straightened in the rocker. You don't say. He enlisted shortly after Lincoln first put out the call. Well, now. Papa stared off toward the dark fields, puffed twice, looked back at her. You know, that's highly commendable. A right honorable fellow, this Cooper, your friend. I need to shake his hand. Sophie sipped her coffee and enjoyed the tranquility of everyone in deep thought about something other than rebel invasion. Her family's sweet attachment to Cooper seemed to grow by the day, much like her own, although the family knew nothing of her confusion. A serious, lasting relationship with a man? It still escapes me as much as it has for years, still rattles uncomfortably inside. Except when it comes to you, Cooper Sampson. How baffling. Dare I believe you've opened my heart wider than I thought possible and raised its voice? And I'll leave that there.
That was wonderful. Thank you. And I love the family's ever so gentle needling. That was yeah, really subtle.
That was fun. That was fun. Thank you, Nathan.
Okay. All right. I guess I will round us out. Today I'm going to be reading from my wee novella. I have a terrible habit of writing novellas, so unfortunately I don't get to have like a book cover to hold up very often. And of course now my iPad is refusing to open. So yes, I can't open up the book cover right now. I'm reading from a novella called A Little Village Blend. It is set in my ongoing gay village Ottawa retelling with a little dash of magic. And all you really need to know about this one, or this scene I'm about to read, is there's a fellow named Ivan who runs a tea shop. He works it with his sister, Anya. Anya has a gift with tea, so does Ivan, but Anya's gift with tea is to read tea leaves, and she is never, ever wrong, which makes her a sister who is never, ever wrong, which is really frustrating for Ivan. He has met a gentleman, a soldier named Walt, who's been popping by the store, and he has a bit of a crush, but his sister read Walt's tea leaves, and she's told him in no uncertain terms he's not the right man. But Ivan's struggling with that a little bit. Ivan let the stairwell entrance close behind him and out of long habit glanced at the small patio in front of Nice Teas to see if it was busy. He'd finished his morning shift and changed into a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And Anya handled the weekend mornings now that they had a part-time staff member, and Ivan was supposed to take the weekends off now and then. It didn't happen. But right away, his gaze caught on Walt. He was in uniform once again and impatiently tapping on his phone while a dog sat quietly beside him. Beautiful husky he'd seen before. Sensei was his name. Ivan was going that way anyway. It wasn't like he could walk by without saying hello. It would be rude. He could almost hear his sister's voice. Right, just being polite. Tell me another one. Ivan smiled as he approached. Walt noticed him, and Ivan saw the big man glance at his arm. In Ivan's t-shirt, the cherry tree tattoo that covered most of Ivan's right arm was on full display. Though Walt was obviously upset about something, he did smile back. You look tense. I'm kind of screwed, Walt said. He blew out a breath. What's wrong? My friend was supposed to be here 15 minutes ago to take Sensei. I'm already pushing being late. I should have left 5 minutes ago. He looked at his phone again, but shook his head. And now he's not answering. He's looking after Sensei for you? Ivan asked, trying not to read too much into the word friend. Well, Sensei's supposed to be his dog, Walt sighed. Sort of. It's a long story. I've been looking after him and I'm leaving for the weekend with General and I should already be on my way to pick him up. Which shouldn't be a problem if someone had come to get the dog like they said they would. Ivan bit his lip. When are you back? Monday mid-morning. He tapped the side of his phone with his thumb. There are delegates coming in from all over North America. It's a big deal. Do you need me to take him? Ivan asked. Immediately, his sister's voice was in his head. No, no, and more no, so much no, a world of no, Ivan. Ivan ignored it. He had the weekend off. Sensei seemed like a nice dog, and Walt really did seem like he was about to lose it. And Anya had said he had a kind of a garbage fire life problem going on right now and needed a hand. And okay, he looked amazing in his uniform. Walt blinked. Seriously? Sure. I live upstairs. Ivan pointed. We can walk to Patterson Park. I like dogs. I don't have anything with me but his leash, Walt said. But Ivan could tell he was definitely considering it. You'd really save my bacon. It's fine, really. I can pick up food from forever. It's okay. It's just for the weekend. He's a rescue, a food guarder. Walt bit his lip. But they do know him at Forever. That's where Matt got Sensei. Go, Ivan said. He took the leash. You've got too much on your plate. I can handle it. It'll be fine. If you ask Forever about him, they'll know. They have his file. Walt gave him the leash, then hesitated. Go, Ivan said. Thank you, Walt said. I'll text you. Crap, I don't have your number. Ivan rattled off his number and Walt put it in his phone. Then he gave Ivan one more thank you and was gone. For a big guy, Walt could hustle. Also, the uniform pants did really nice things to his butt. Ivan looked down at Sensei. The husky stared up at him with his mismatched eyes. He was panting a little bit, and Ivan thought Sensei seemed to be taking the measure of him. When Walt went around the corner, Sensei rose and took a single step toward where Walt had vanished, and he whined once, a single peep sound that went straight to Ivan's heart. Oh, it's okay, Sensei, Ivan said. The big dog blinked at him. It's you and me for the weekend. Sensei sat again. Ivan reached down and stroked his head, and the dog leaned into it. Oh, Ivan's sister would not approve of him getting involved in Walt's problems, but he couldn't deny it felt good to help. And stroking the soft fur between Sensei's ears, he realized his plans for the weekend, stopping by the second page and picking up a new book, grabbing some groceries, spending the afternoon reading somewhere in the shade. Now had a companion, albeit a fuzzy one, and that made him look forward to it all the more. You know, you make me feel less like a loner, Ivan said. Why do you have a dog? Ivan turned. Anya was leaning out the front door of Nice Teas. His sister stared at him. He's just a loner for the weekend. Uh-huh, she said. From Sergeant Tall, Dark, and Garbage Trash Fire Life? Ivan's face heated up. Maybe, yes. Ugh, you are hopeless. Anya stepped back into the store and the door closed. Don't mind her, Ivan said. She's recently become a cat person. Sensei huffed. So I'll stop there. And I'll invite everybody to come back. We did get a couple of questions, or we have a question. So once everybody's popped back in, there you go, there you are. So Hannah has a three-part question. And so I'm gonna read you the whole thing. You can answer any part of it, all part of it, and I'll pass it to you one by one. But where do your story ideas come from? Do the characters pop into your head and you're driven to write their stories? Or do life situations sort of spark your interest and you twist that to make them into your own? And I'm going to start with the terrible trio. So Erin and Jean and Jackie, if you want to take turns with that.
I would say yes, yes, and yes, because all of those three things that you listed, Nathan, I have picked and plucked and pulled from for sure.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I sometimes come up with like a character that I'm like, I want to write a story about this particular person, but even if that happens, my life always gets in there, always. So it's like some sort of situation that happens to me always makes it into whatever I'm writing.
Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, we write what we know. So bits and pieces of everyone that we know, good, bad, and in between end up somewhere in characters. And the good thing about being a writer is when you really don't like someone, you can kill them off.
I always joke about that thing in the front of the book that says any relation to, or they are totally fiction. I'm like, yeah, the lawyers have to put that in there, but we all know.
Right.
Yeah, whoops, sorry. Yeah.
How about you, MJ?
I usually start with the characters. They come to me first and I build the story around them, but the story is definitely influenced by life. Always. I agree with what they said.
And how about you, CF? Like, you write historicals, so I'm guessing, like, I mean, inspired by real life, or is it inspired more by historical events in your case, or?
I suppose it is life, like MJ said. Measure of Devotion really came from a visit to Gettysburg. Of course, being a history fanatic, it doesn't hurt. You know? But just being in Gettysburg and on the battlefield, seeing the farmhouses in the middle, right in the middle of the battlefield, just made me wonder, and carried to the next step. If you were inside one of those houses, what hell it must have been like, you know, what you must have endured. And that's just that brought it all on. How to put a family there and take it from there. But for the most part, I mean, I've written a couple contemporary romances as well, Night Voice and Nantucket Rose. And well, Night Voice is Provincetown, and we all can, there's a little bit of life, you know, in that for all of us who've been there. And Nantucket Rose, I worked on the island for a while, so there's an attachment to that. So I suppose it's just life experiences that just things spring forth, you know.
How about you, Renee?
Like MJ, I'm pretty character driven, although little pieces and parts of places I've been or things I've seen or people I know sneak into our books. I mean, I don't see how they can't. Since most of us probably spend as much time writing as we do living our lives. So it's bound to happen.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I'm going to ask you guys a question that came from something that happened before we actually started. Renee held up her planning guide or her current work in progress, and it had all these Post-its in these wonderful, neat, organized fashion. So I'm going to ask a process question. I'm going to start with Renee to give the rest of you, who I think are a little bit more fly-by-night, time to think about your answer. How do you organize when you're writing?
I don't. I honestly don't. I've gotten in trouble a few times, and like a couple of my books are like, well, this has to move here and that has to go there, and then you've got this all out of order, so you have to change all this. So the sticky notes came from how am I going to do this and not lose my mind. So I started going through the edits and making little stickies for each chapter and each scene of each chapter, so that if I had to take a scene and move it from one place to another, all I did was peel it off the page and stick it where it needed to go. And it made my life a lot simpler. And now I just start every book like that. I just decided that why not get ahead of the game, because it's bound to happen again. Apparently I write out of order. Who knows?
Hannah Tweed just said in the chat, it's literal cut and paste.
It is.
Right. How about you, Sia?
Well, for instance, I think Night Voice is a good example of writing out of order for me. I sat down outside on the deck one summer and just started cranking. It was Provincetown. I didn't have to do a lot of research. Yay! I could just like crank out a really fun romance. And then I got 40,000 words into it and decided I needed a beginning, that I hadn't really established anything. So I pushed it all to the end and started over, figuring I'd catch up to what I had written. Never used any of it. 40,000 words out, gone. And I went right through to the end and never used that original. So yeah, that was written out of order, as opposed to Measure of Devotion, which according to military protocol and military campaigns and war, you damn well better fight according to the calendar. So everything had to go to where, in accordance with fact, historical fiction, you better make sure that this army is here on that day, because somebody will look it up and catch you. So it's a matter of, I think romance, you can maybe find yourself here and there at times, but historical fiction, not so much.
True.
How about you, MJ? Are you organized? Are you
Not even slightly. Not even remotely. I'm like, no. I mean, I write linearly, so there's that. But when my wife Layden was doing a bunch of her writing, she had like this big arc on the wall, and I would be writing away, and every so often I'd look up at the arc and go like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be here yet, and then go back and add a little bit here or there and try to follow that. But I'm not organized at all.
How about you, Erin? Does one of the three of you take the lead, or is this like is it like a hot pot? Like what happens here?
Well, for this book in particular, I mean, it really kind of started with Jackie. Jackie had this like amazing idea, and she FaceTimed Jean and me while she was like driving home from work, and we're like, like she's so pumped up about it, and it was hard to not be like, yeah, I'm totally in. But I think for this one in particular, we had to be more I had to be more organized with them than I am in like my normal on the side writing, like my actual like other books that I've written, because I'm like a total pantser when it comes to writing. But this one, it was like, I feel like we really had to be organized, right?
Sure.
Sure.
Well, I was thinking of what you said, you know, like because it was Jackie's, you know, Jackie was the father of our baby in some respects. And so we had to have her start us off because we had to know what her initial vision was. And then as we went along, you know, we had our 3,000 word system set up, but I would always want to have just a quick little, and we got to the point where we were just doing it by text. We didn't even have to call each other. And I was just going to say, all right, a day from now, what's going to happen? I just want to know what's going to happen one scene ahead. So when I write this, it could just kind of go into that. And that's kind of like, I always try to start out like Renee. I get this great idea for a book, and then I like maybe have 6 post-it notes, and then it's just gone. It just goes away. I can't stick with it. I'm not patient enough. And I just end up flying by the seat of my pants.
Jackie?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Like literally more than half the time. I don't know what I'm doing. No, this is going to surprise literally no one that knows me. I'm actually pretty detail oriented. I keep I keep notes about not necessarily where it's going, but like character notes, because I hate flipping back and trying to figure out like if I've mixed up hair colors or eye colors or whatever. But I try, until I get real deep into a story, I actually try not to outline unless I'm working on it in a team, because then I get kind of married to an idea, and sometimes stories need to change just for better flow. So I really only outline things when working with other people, because that just helps keep us all on track, because sometimes you don't see the book for another 6,000 words. And I mean, when I wrote a book with Jean, she took a hard left and all of a sudden Athena was in there. Then I don't even know where like the goddess Athena showed up. I didn't understand where she came from. So it's easier when you're working with people to outline.
That is brilliant. I think you've all given me such validation. I'm such a pantser and I never write in order. So that was lovely. The last time I think I did one of these, everyone else was like, oh, no, I write linearly and I write in order, scene by scene, and I have an outline. I'm like, that's great.
No, I mean, I'm sort of the same way. Like I do write linearly, but I never really have an outline. I just am like, they're gonna get together and I'm gonna get them there. So, but if I get them there and then I had to go back, I don't think I could do it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, it's the buildup for me. So
all right,
the chase for Erin.
Yeah, it's always the chase.
I just want to take one last opportunity. First to thank all the authors for coming and giving us a reading. You were all wonderful. And then B, thank you to everyone in the audience who took the time to come visit us anytime over the last 3 days. It's been a wonderful ride as always. So we thank you very much for joining us. All the links are in the chat roll if you want to scroll back to see any of the titles and authors. Many of the titles are on sale. And that's for all of the authors who presented, read, or were on panels at all this weekend. So once again, thank you very much. And we'll wish you all a very good night and see you next time we do a Bookathon.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see
Bye,
you.
guys.